It's Wednesday. It's time for another Business Analysis Live. My name is Susan Moore. I'm the Community Engagement Manager at the International Institute of Business Analysis. Thanks for taking some time today to listen to us, to be thinking with us. We like thinking. That's pretty much a critical skill set that we have as business analysis professionals. You might be familiar with critical thinking and analytical thinking, maybe systems thinking, but there's another kind of thinking that has been going on in our community, and it's about outcomes. And what do those mean for organizations? What is our part in helping organizations to become outcome driven? Well, it starts with business analysis professionals. Here at IIBA, we've been thinking about that and writing about that for a while. But recently, we have had an author who's really been thinking about that. And I am excited to have him here today. He's going to talk about this book, but he's a familiar face. You've probably seen him before. And here he is. Let's see. I gotta make sure I get my intro ready. Here he is, Fabricio Laguna. Let me see. Here we go. Oh, wait. What happened?
That's the sound.
There we go. I got it this time. The Brazilian BA. That's how you may know him. Um,
Happy to join you, Susan.
I am really happy to have you back. Now, full disclosure for the audience, we actually chat like every other week. And first of all, there's always music, which I think sets the tone for our conversations because it kind of gets us out of whatever and into something that is more creative. So I'm eager to have conversations. We've had music already today. So this is going to be a great conversation about outcome driven thinking. But before we go there, listen, I know a lot of people know who you are, but talk about yourself a little bit, your background, and how you got to writing this book, which I'm going to hold up again for the audience. Please hold the power of
Okay.
outcome driven thinking.
Well, I'm Brazilian, as the Brazilian BA says, right? I live in Sao Paulo, Brazil, and I have been part of this community for a while. So I was the IIBA Brazil chapter president for more than a decade. I was the first mm, Latin American CBOP, Certified Business Analysis Professional in 2008, and I engaged into this community for a while. Started speaking into international conference a decade ago, and I just enjoy it. And I learned some stuff that I have shared. Some of those stuff I learned with business analysis, and some are even older. Like for example, I learned something from my grandpa. So my grandpa, his name was Americo, and he used it to tell me that you should not trust everyone. Not everyone is trustful. And he told me about a story that happened to him probably 60 years ago before I was born. He was traveling into Brazil with his car, and at certain point in the road, his car just stopped. It broke. I don't know why, and he stopped by the side of the road. He tried to figure out what was happening, opened the front part of the car, and looked inside to see if he could see something, what was happening, and what he could do to solve that situation. He looked inside, and suddenly he heard a voice saying, "Oh, it's dirty spark plug." He was, I don't know, curious. He looked around to see if there was someone. He was alone. There was just this field, his car, and a horse, and no one around. He looked into the engine of the car again, and he already heard a voice saying, "It's dirty spark plug." He looking around, and he just saw the horse and no one around it. And when he looked at the horse again, he could see the mouth of the horse moving and say, "It's dirty spark plug." And he got so scared about that, the horse saying what was going on with his Gene, and he started running, and he ran, I don't know, about a mile, and there was this bar close to the road, and he entered the bar and just breathing very hard. And the guy of the bar, the bartender said, "Oh, calm down, calm down." He gave him some water. What's going on? I said, "Oh, my car in the road. Oh, calm down, bring some water. What's going on? Oh, my car got broken in the road." And I said, "Oh, no problem. We can help you with that." No, 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 but that's not all. When my car was broken, I was looking into the engine, and a horse told me it was dirty spark plug. And the guy said, "The horse told you that the problem was dirty spark plug?" I said, "Yes, yes, yes. The horse was speaking." And the guy just thought for a minute and said, "Was it a white horse?" "Yes, yes, it was a white horse." "Don't worry, this horse knows nothing about engine." So Grandpa told me, and I learned from Grandpa Americo that you cannot trust everyone. Some people are just horsing talking about engine, but you can always trust a good story, because storytelling keeps the engagement of our audience. So when you tell stories, the way people understand stuff is easier. People connect with a good story. That's how our brain was created. We are telling stories around the fire since we were cavemen. People are sharing knowledge through stories. And that's what I tried to do with this book, Please Hold. It's a story. So I'm a storyteller, Susan.
You are a storyteller. I mean, I think that's one of the things that you bring into the presentations that you do, is to help weave these interesting facts together, um, and in a way that just connects with a lot of people. I that is such a listen, I come from a family of storytellers as well. You're right, because that is in part how they shared family history, also kept us laughing. It was ways that there were 5 boys in the family, that the boys kind of one-upped each other, right? It was through their storytelling. Who could make their mother laugh? Um, it's such a powerful way to share, maybe an outcome, right, by giving an example. And so, um, yeah, so this is what this is. I know you and I have talked
It's a
about this book.
novel. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a
Yeah, it's
novel about a character, and it's not a technical book. It's not the kind of book like the BA book where you see a lot of techniques and learn purpose tasks, how to make a recipe of how you do business. But you can see someone doing business analysis in real life, in a
yeah,
story that you can engage. There's romance, there's adventure, there's a lot of stuff going on. So it's easier for you to learn and have an understanding about stuff. And the objective of this book is trying to change people's mindset, change the
right.
way they think, change the way they feel, and change the way they behave.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think this fills a really necessary gap. Very often, when people talk about the business analysis body of knowledge, they say, it's so conceptual. How on earth do I know how to do these things? You see these things in action in the characters in your book. So you get a sense for what that would look like, as opposed to, oh, I'm going to do, I'm going
Process
to do,
analysis,
yeah, yeah. Um,
use case, stakeholder analysis. It all looks so cold, right?
it does, but then you see and hear the words that they use in order to describe those things, and I think it really connects with people in a different way. Now, when you were here a couple of years ago talking about the business analysis mindset, we talked about that in terms of, almost like muscle memory. So we talked about it is important for you to learn the foundations and the techniques of this work. And then it's important for you to do it. And that combination of knowing how to do it, the mechanics of doing it, and then having the experience of doing it, so that at a certain point it was less about thinking through, I am going to use a whatever technique. And it became more of, okay, well, I'm in this particular scenario and I'm going to use a interview because I know that's the right technique for right now. How did you get from thinking and talking about the business analysis mindset to then talking and thinking about outcome driven thinking?
right? So my intention was always to get a wider audience. When I started talking about the business analysis mindset, I saw that some of the ways that business analysts, professional business analysts work is useful not just for professional business analysts, but for any kind of professional. So if we think about business architects, project managers, product owners, all those roles are dealing with changing organizations. Some way they're trying to make those organizations to have a different way of working so they can perform better, they can be more productive, they can get better outcomes, right? And what a business analysis do is enabling change by the definition of what business analysis is. And when you practice business analysis, this changes the way you think about stuff, the way you work, the way you behave. And then you said it's like muscle memory. If someone just asks you for a system, you start asking why. You don't have even to think that this is a technique, but why? Nobody needs a system. You must have a problem, and you believe a system is a solution for a problem. So what's the need that this solution will solve? So it becomes so natural for business analysts thinking about understanding what's the real motivation for something. That's what I was calling the business analysis mindset. But I wanted more people to share this mindset or to belong to this group of people who share a mindset. But I was facing some resistance from people who didn't see themselves as business analysts because of the name. So when you say business analyst, we're talking about business. And a lot of organizations, despite we consider them business, they don't consider themselves as business because they think business as a for profit stuff, like government. They say, oh, I don't work for a business, I work for government. We know government is a business, but they don't see themselves in that way. Or I work for a church, or I work for a non-profit organization. So for a hospital. They don't see as a business because they take business as a pejorative term or for profit term. And some people don't see themselves as analysts because they see themselves in another terminology, like they say, "Oh, I am a manager, I am a product owner." No, I don't think analyst defines me as a person. So the name business and analysis was giving me some restriction to reach those people. And I was looking for what I created at first for my BA mindset definition. And I had a BA and a non BA. So I was trying to create the mindset to make it clear how does a BA thinks and how a non BA thinks. And I tried to make it for even a higher level. And I started to think about BAs are very much outcome driven and non-BAs are usually output driven. And by that, there's a differentiation about what an outcome and an output is, and we should talk a little bit about that. But that's how I tried to make it wider for a wider community. So probably I should define outcome and output, right?
Yeah, I think let's define what you mean by those terms because it's actually I think it's very important obviously for the book, right? But at the back, let's see. Ooh, you've actually got examples of what you mean by output driven versus outcome driven. So maybe
And
talk
and
about the difference.
and this summary is even available in the preview copy for free at IABA website. So if you go
Oh,
to the IABA website, there's a preview copy of the book with the first chapters and this summary. So
oh.
it's there for anyone who wants to download it and
If
please spread it.
If Rosalind is listening right now, Rosalind, can you drop the link to the preview copy into the chat today, and that way people can grab it and kind of follow along after they've they've heard this
All
episode
right.
today.
Otherwise, it's going to be available in the links of this chat later. So let's talk about outputs and outputs, right?
Okay.
So when you think about an output is something that is created by a task. So if you have a process or if you are responsible for a task, the task of producing a document, the document is the output, right? So it's exactly what the provider will create when we have a consumer and provider relationship. I say, oh, give me something, and that's the output. Let's say that's an example I give in the book. I go for a mechanics and say, oh, I need you to adjust change my, how do you say that in English? Suspension, my car suspension. Is that
Okay.
is that a word?
That's a word. Yep.
Oh,
That's it.
I need you to change my car suspension, and he is gonna do right, just that. He's gonna change my car suspension, and I get my car back, and I drive my car and say, oh, but the noise is still here. He'll say, oh, but you asked me to change your suspension. You didn't ask me to stop the noise of your car. So did I when I asked for changing the suspension, I was expecting for an outcome, right? The result, the consequence that I expected was to remove a noise, something that was bothering me about my car, right? So this expected outcome should be shared with my provider. He should be looking not for just the output of his work, changing the suspension, but he should understand what was the expected outcome. And maybe he didn't even need it to change my suspension. There was some other stuff that was making the noise, right? So whatever kind of professional I am, business analysts are very good in doing that. But whatever kind of professional I am, when someone asked me for an output or to produce something, I should understand what's the expected outcome from this output that they are asking. So I must guarantee that the expected outcome will come because the value is there. So people is asking for something, right? And then I can provide. I can even be a little critical and say, "Oh, but you don't need to change your suspension, the suspension of your car. There's another problem, right?" Or if someone asks me, "Oh, I need you to build a requirement specification." Nobody needs a requirement specification. Sorry, they need something else. But a requirement specification is part of the way of achieving that outcome. If you don't understand, or if you are not driven by the expected outcome, you can't build the right requirement specification. You're just, I don't know, putting words. And ChatGPT can do that for you, right? But what's the expected outcome? So who are the stakeholders behind it? What are their needs? And to understand that outcome, you must develop a wider vision, right? So who are the stakeholders? What are their needs? If I change these, how is going to be the impact of these and for those people, for the environment, for the planet, right? So I have to build this holistic vision to understand the consequence about what we are doing, and so I can focus and drive my work to the outcomes. I'm gonna produce outputs. Okay, no, it's important to requirement specification is key for achieving what you want to achieve, but that's not the goal. That's not the end. That's not what drives me. What drives me are the
Yeah.
outcomes that's going to happen. So that's how an outcome driven person should understanding the consequence and working for them. But what I see, Susan, and this is an interesting point, our organizations were very structured in an output driven way. And I say we're doing this since the Industrial Revolution, right? When factories started to build and structure business as machines, so we have this very Cartesian way of thinking the world like a big machine. So if you want to understand the big machine, you just crop it down into small pieces and all pieces together will work as a machine. So this mechanical way of understanding business make people work for outputs and don't understand the whole, right? So people are just doing their job, what they're told to do. They don't have to understand the, the whole, because they're just a piece of the machine. Like
Yeah.
the spark plug don't have to understand the whole engine; they just have to create a spark, right? And so in a lot of organizations, people are just doing that. They come, they do their tasks, they produce their outputs, they get their money, and they come back. And that's kind of sad, because it creates this kind of separation between work and life. Like if those are two separate things, right? Like severance, right? No, so
Yeah.
work is one thing, life is another thing, right? So
Right.
there's the thing that you do to make money, and there's when you enjoy your life. If we change this mindset, if we don't look for an organization in the mechanical way of seeing an organization, but more as a system, right? As an organic way of looking at organizations. So you are part of a system, and that's different, because the system as a whole to work. And to work as a system, I must understand the whole. I must see my part on this, and I work for a purpose. And that's beautiful. When people start understanding why they're doing what they're doing, they're not just working to create an output, but they're looking for the outcome of what they're doing. There is a purpose that's bigger than themselves, right? So, like you and me, we are here working into IIBA for a purpose that's bigger than ourselves. We want to make the world better. We want to change the world. We want to make companies to get better outcomes. We must make people happier by solving their needs, right? So this gives us a way of seeing work and life, not separate stuff, but together, right? So it connects the employee with the purpose of the company and a purpose from himself. And if he's really looking in an holistic way as a purpose for the world, because that's how things connect, right? Oh, but I'm working in a company that is not doing good for the environment, for example, or not doing good for the world. Well, leave this company, find another one, because you have to connect yourself. You have to become outcome driven. You have to know what are the outcomes of the outputs you're producing every day, so you can do it better, so you can adjust it, so you can change it. And that's what business analysis is about, the practice of enabling change, right? So we can find
Yes.
better value for the stakeholders.
Holy smokes. You have just dropped a lot of knowledge on us. Also, I have had an epiphany about my career in just that time that you've been describing this. Let's unpack this a little bit, because I think you've given some interesting points here, and I think I want to add to a little bit of that. I love the example that you use for being outcome driven, with going to get your car fixed, because I think that everybody has had that happen. Sometimes I think what we do also with an output driven mindset is thinking that when we show up as business analysis professionals, that our customer is going to know what his or her outcome is. And I and so I think that's an expectation we have. I do not think that's an expectation that we should have. So having an outcome driven mindset means I hear them say, um, I need a new suspension. But if I have an outcome driven mindset, I am not going, that guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Um, I might say, well, tell me more about that. What is it that makes you think you've got a suspension problem? And so it is engaging in that conversation, because we need to connect with the person, really understand what they mean. So I am hearing a lot of empathy that is involved in this outcome driven mindset, because the way that you describe it as bigger than yourself, bigger than your organization, means that there's a level of feeling and hearing what other people are needing, like making space to hear that and see that in a respectful way that will help them to be successful. So I actually wrote down customer success as you were talking about that. And I'm kind of using that word customer because that is obviously exactly what this is an example of, right? So this is an example of somebody who was a cog in the wheel, right? I'm just here to answer phone calls in a really not good functioning system. And then one day he decides, I'm going to do something different because it matters. And in the first couple of chapters, it matters a lot. You have to be able to feel that work matters and be able to ask questions. I also just wanted to add, because you mentioned outputs. I know very often we can get overly focused on outputs. Our leaders might be focused on our outputs, but outputs really just memorialize the stuff that we um, are putting together. We're memorializing decisions. We are, putting on paper what people have said, what they think they need, so that we can get agreement around it. And so that's why if all that I'm focused on is just that requirements document, it's actually not going to get me anywhere because we've all agreed to that. So what? What's next? Um, anyway, I'll stop there. But just also, no, I'm going to tell you my career epiphany I just had. I have tended to work for small to mid-sized companies because in large companies where I was a cog in the wheel, it made me feel really uncomfortable. I wanted to know what happens outside of this work that I'm doing. I wanted to be engaged with those other groups and seeing what they're doing and helping to make the organization better. And so I wonder if I found my sweet spot because maybe having an outcome driven mindset is just a trait that I have. So, wow, thanks for that.
Hi, welcome. So I like that. I like that. But let me call back some points that you mentioned. So about big companies, I start from the end. Right? It's very common that in big companies you just get lost about the outcomes and you just get stuck into doing some tasks that you have no idea what are the points. So how does that connect with the strategy of the whole organization? So that's very common. And that's the place that you will more often find professional business analysts, big companies, because they need someone to see the whole. Because they don't, if they don't have someone with the duty of understanding the consequences of what's being done, if you don't have someone focusing on how can I connect strategy to execution, it just gets lost. And that's the role that professional business analysts are doing in those big organizations. And that's why they develop this mindset so well, right? So they develop a lot of practice that you can use to make this mindset tangible, right? So that's point one. Point two about outputs. It's important for us to have structured processes that create outputs, and otherwise we kind of get lost, right? If all I see is the outcome that I want to achieve, but I can't see a process to reach that outcome, I kind of get lost, and it can be kind of overwhelming, right? So it's important for us to have a process that help us to achieve the desired outcome. And into this process, there are several tests, and all those tests have outputs, right? So those outputs is not something bad.
Right.
Having outputs in your work is what gives you the next step. So you can organize yourself. You can wake up in the morning and say, "Oh, I have to create this small document," and not just achieve that so far outcome that's so hard to or it looks unachievable. But so if you have a process, you can do these small outputs. The problem is when you lost the outcome from your site and you have no idea what the outcome is. So that's why I call attention for an outcome driven mindset is having this awareness about the outcome. It's not about outputs are not important. No, they're very important and they're needed, right? So but they must be aligned to the outcome. They must have a path that connects strategy to execution. So that's how those two things connect. And from our first point, about engaging people and listening to others. I really believe that if I want to understand the outcomes of what we are doing, or if I want to understand what's the desired outcomes, I cannot just stay with my point of view. I need a I need a wider point of view. I need to engage with other people. I need to to look for other perspectives. So someone who have an outcome driven mindset must be humble to understand they don't know it all, right? Nobody knows it all, right? Nobody have all the perspectives. So you have to engage people. So usually someone who develops this mindset become very collaborative. They're open to listen, they bring people, and they, as a business analyst usually does, they lead people in a way to collaborate. They put people together, and I'm not saying leading by defining the direction, but helping the group to work together to find the right direction, right? So because you can understand that your vision is a perspective, a single one, and it's not as powerful as a shared perspective with different people. So I believe our techniques of business analysis help us to do that. Like when we are talking about, you mentioned in an interview when we are trying to understand from another perspective, but you can also talk about workshops when you're leading a group to work together and you make those ideas visible and everyone can see what they're talking about in, for example, in a process flow. So a process flow is a way of everyone to have the same understanding about the way we are working or the way we should work, right? So as these are to be version of a process flow. So you are engaging with your stakeholders to make them part of what you're building. And that's the beauty, I believe, on the business analysis professionals. They're not just using this outcome driven mindset, they are fostering the, this outcome driven mindset with the group that they're working together. So in a certain way, they're trying to make everyone to become outcome driven. That's part that's our job. We're trying to make everyone understand why they're doing what they're doing, why it is this important, what we should prioritize into the stuff that we are doing. It's a very beautiful profession.
It is, as you were giving that example, I was thinking about, my friend has a sheep farm, and, he has a herding dog. He's got an Australian Shepherd. The shepherd, the human shepherd, knows where he knows which field the sheep need to be in, but he uses his Australian Shepherd in order to get them together and move them in the direction that the shepherd wants them to go. The shepherd could do that, but boy, does that take a lot of effort. But he's got, two dogs actually that are trained to help him do that. And so I wrote down, we're the herding dogs of the business world. I hope everybody feels good about that. But I kind
They're
of think,
beautiful dogs,
because I
at
often
least.
say, yeah, they are. They are super smart.
Yeah.
Border collies and Australian shepherds, they are super smart, right? It's in some ways very smart, maybe too smart for their own good. And that they can do this naturally. Maybe we could say that these herding dogs are outcome driven, right? They see themselves as a partner to the shepherd to move them along. Um, I love that.
Let me take a ride in your last
Okay.
part. And that's something that I have been thought and have been thinking about. Is this natural, like for the dogs, or is this something developed that you can learn and from a training, for example?
Mm-hmm.
And I believe you can develop it. I believe you can train yourself for an outcome driven mindset. For some people, it's going to be easier. Right? That's what talent is about, is the speed that you learn. So someone
Yeah.
more talented means that they learn faster, right? And for some people who are not very much talented, they can learn as well, but they will need some more effort to learn. But I believe it's something you can learn. And how do you learn or how do you develop this outcome driven mindset? The way I have been teaching people to develop this mindset is through business analysis practices. So remember the muscle memory that you said? So something that you do repeatedly just become part of yourself, and you don't have to think about that anymore. You're just doing, like guys playing basketball, they don't have to think about throwing a ball in 3 points and making the so far away and putting that big ball into the small arc, but they just do it. It's muscle memory. They don't have to think about it because they practice it and practice it and practice it over and over again until it becomes part of their mindset or part of the way their body works, their mind works. So I believe that business analysis techniques, if we practice over and over, they can develop this way of thinking. And independently, if you are a professional business analyst, if you do business analysis, I call you a business analysis professional, right?
Yes. Yep.
You may have another role or another title. You can practice those techniques and develop this mindset. That's what I believe. That's what I'm trying to sell into this book.
And I think you do a great job of that. Now, uh, unbelievably, we only have like a couple of minutes left together. This has been so good. But listen, the comments, like people are really connecting with what we're talking about here. So but I don't see any questions in there. Although I am going to pop this one up. This is from Bindu. Hey, Bindu. She says business analysis mindset is doing the right things rather than just doing things right. And maybe we don't even have to use that last right rather than just doing things, right?
But if
Because
you're doing things right, but they're not the right things to be done,
yes. Well, again, I love that idea of outputs are the milestones of a process that makes our work visible. Um, I did a series of workshops at the BA and Beyond conferences, and we talked about business analysis is many times invisible, right? When business analysis is present, we generally get good outcomes, and so very often it can trick organizations into thinking, oh, well, I don't really need a business analyst. I mean, things just worked. And then when they get rid of that role or they get rid of that capability, they find that things don't work. Because, as you said, very often times the business analysis professionals are one of the few people that have this duty of being able to look across the organization to know how things work, to ask questions in ways that very often other people cannot do that because they, are responsible for profit or whatever. Um,
I heard
so
yesterday a business analyst saying, "Oh, we usually do things that nobody wants to do," and kind of sad. But I understand that they see that someone had to do it because if we want to achieve that expected outcome, this must be done, and someone just goes on and take it. And it's very common that business analysts take some jobs that are not expected. It's not on their list of outputs, but they can do it because they see that if that's not done, they won't achieve the expected outcome. So they're outcome driven,
yes,
and they just do it.
to add to that, another theme in these workshops that we did, we talked about, do we need to ask permission or can we just, you know, take accountability and do it? And for a lot of people, they said if the right mindset is if we see something that needs to be done, don't ask, just do it. And I think that might be another differentiator between the outcome driven mindset versus the output driven. Output driven is you need to ask me to do the task and then I'll do it. Outcome driven is I see it needs to be done. No one has asked me. I'm going to do it.
And if you want to add a lean part of this, if you are doing something that's not valuable, stop doing it. So
Exactly. Right. The converse is true, right? If it's not getting you good outcomes, stop doing it.
stop doing it. Why are you
Yeah.
doing? Nobody's gonna read this document that I'm writing, and there's no point about it. Why am I doing this? Right?
Uh,
Stop doing
save
it.
Save yourself the time. Hey, as we are starting to wrap up today, I am going to ask, I see both Rosalind and Tiffany are listening. Hey y'all, if if one of you or both of you will drop in, you are going to be doing a webinar on this, the outcome driven mindset. It's coming up on September 10th. Let me go grab that information. I'm going to drop it into the YouTube. If you guys would like to join us, we're going to learn more about the outcome driven mindset. We'll talk a little bit more about this book, and you can ask Fabricio more questions about this. September 10th, 12 o'clock Eastern. I did put the Eastern time. By the way, yeah. Make sure you take the ET out of the link. Sorry, YouTube. Um, so let's see. Actually, I'm going to add one more thing. We didn't get a lot of questions today. I think they were just enthralled with the conversation. But here, I'm going to pop this in. This is from Alina. Just want to quote CR in this discussion about natural talent versus developed skills. Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. This mindset's extremely important. Yeah. Also, you could use nature versus nurture as is kind of what you're talking about.
Yes, and when we are talking about talent, I mentioned the speed of learning, right, as talent. But if you put some more effort, you learn more than someone who just do a little bit of effort. And one way to develop your abilities it, and to have the strength to put more effort in doing something is to have a purpose, connect what you're doing with a purpose. So again, coming back to the outcome driven mindset, right? So if I can understand the outcomes of what I'm doing, or let's say I'm a student or a learner, I'm learning some skill, I'm developing this skill, and I understand the consequence or the outcomes that I'm going to get in the end, and this outcome is bigger than myself. This gives me the strength to go deeper, to go harder, hard work is stronger than talent because I put a lot of effort on that because I believe on the purpose. I'm searching for the purpose that I'm looking for.
I like that because I think we sometimes don't think about the impact of having a purpose, what that does to us mentally as we are thinking about it. If you are stuck and frustrated just creating these outputs and not connecting it into something broader, it can feel a little bit like like an energy uh, drain versus I'm working towards something bigger. Can be really um, can be really motivating. Also, okay, I didn't know CR. Thank you. Cristiano Ronaldo is a
Yeah,
soccer player,
a
right?
very good one. Yeah,
Okay, good.
Portuguese.
Yeah, okay. I'm trying, but you know what? I'm going to give you props for using a basketball analogy today because I love basketball. So thank you for that. I didn't get the soccer reference. I'm sorry, Aline. Oh my goodness. All right. Well, as usual, I we just have great conversations, and you always leave me thinking. So, I know that it's you that leaves me thinking, but I think the music that you share at the beginning of all of our sessions also really, really helps. Like, that's my language is music. So for me, it does tend to unlock something. I'm going to share again your website. Like if people want to find out more about you, thebrazilianba.com, if they don't already have that information,
There's a
come
lot
on
of
over.
videos, articles, and free stuff on the BrazilianBA.com. Also, link for my online course, business analysis based on the BA Walk Guide. So come on.
And if you are at a conference and you see him on the schedule, get to his session because one, you're going to have fun. Two, there's going to be music, there's going to be dancing, there's going to be something that's going to be a little bit different. And then you're going to learn business analysis on top of that, which
Yeah.
is the best way to learn what we do is to have some fun.
Sometimes even some stories from my grandpa.
There you go. We love those stories. I've got a couple of stories of my dad's Uncle Henry. I'll save those for later. He was quite the character as well. Well, anyway, it has been so great to have you come join us and tell us about your book, and hopefully we get people inspired to read it and then to come see you because we're
No,
you're going to be talking some more about this.
thank you. And if someone reads, put your comments on LinkedIn. I would love to read your thoughts about it. I see that when we write a book, a lot of people read it in a different way than we write. So those are different perspectives. Again, I would love to see your perspective.
Yes, and I should mention, you really appreciate that feedback. I know I did kind of a download with you of kind of what I was getting so far, and you were genuinely excited
Yes,
about what I was saying.
I
So please, more of that.
yeah,
All right. Well, thanks again. We will see you soon, I am sure.
sure. Thank you,
Yeah.
Susan.
Take care. All right. And that is it for today's conversation. I hope you guys will check out this book. It's such an easy read, and you will see exactly what he means by an outcome driven thinking. We'll be back in 2 weeks. And when I see you, maybe you've had this question: what is a solutions architect? Have you heard about this kind of a role? Maybe you work with one, maybe you want to be one. Well, our guest, who has previously been on, has an update, and he's a solution architect. So he's going to talk to us more about just what that means. It's been great to talk with you guys today. We'll see you 2 weeks from today. Thanks. See you soon. Bye.